Welcome to a brand new episode of On VJ's playlist. And today I'm joined by the Anand Bhaskar and Chinmay Agharkar, whom we know better also as Groove Bot. And they are here to promote their brand new single, Under Pressure. Welcome, gentlemen. How have you been doing this afternoon?
Hi, Vijayalakshmi. We
Hi
are good,
Vijaya.
and hi, and yeah, we've been good. We're like very happy to be here, and yeah.
Yes, thank you for having us and thank you for doing this. Helps us promote the
But
song.
before we do this, Vijaya is short for Vijayalakshmi, right?
I mean, yeah, VJ, Vijaya, whatever you are
Okay,
comfortable with.
cool. Because for a second I got scared that I like maybe said the wrong name. So I just wanted to confirm it before we
No, no.
go forward so that I don't keep saying the wrong name. Okay, cool.
But gentlemen, what a delightful collaboration because this is something like firstly, I am a complete novice when it comes to metal, which is something that is clearly Chinmay's expertise. And then he presents you, Anand, in a way that your fans and avid music listeners have never heard you before. So
Yeah.
before everything else, before we deep dive into the whole process of making Under Pressure, I want to first ask, how did this synergy come into place of two different musical voices?
Um, See, Chinmay and I have known each other for, I don't even remember how I met Chinmay, to be honest, because or when I met Chinmay. I mean, we've known each other that long. I
Hmm.
don't
Yeah.
remember it, easily more than a decade for sure. Easily,
Yeah.
Easily,
you
yeah.
know? Yeah. And so, you know, firstly, as human beings, we connect mentally, like quite strongly. There are a lot of
Absolutely.
things that we, share our opinions on. And, in general, the synergy was always there,
Yeah.
And plus, our respective bands, Shift and ABC, have, sort of played together and, we're all like very close friends. The members of PS and the members of ABC are close friends. So that energy was always there. And I remember when he first released, his track with Pratika, and then again with Siddharth. He sent me his stuff, and I was like, "This is a great direction, musical direction for him." And then he told me that, okay, there's a track which I'm thinking about which I would want to do with you. I was like, sure, send it to me. And that was the seed of the track, really. And
Yeah.
because I was so caught up with all my other commercial projects,
Yeah.
I kind of made him wait for like almost 2 years, and he was patient enough to not really scream his head off at me, and I'm very thankful towards like Chinmay for that, because anybody in his position would have lost their patience and would have just moved on and said, like, get lost away. I'm just going with another singer. But he waited, and I'm so glad he did, because the track turned out to be so good. So yeah.
Chinmay, you'd like to add to that?
Oh yeah. So as you said, we've known each other for like easily more than a decade, but we've never worked on something that's essentially ours, right? He's always been doing his thing with ABC. I've played a few shows with them. I've always been doing my thing with Paradigm. So also we
No,
share a
also
lot of common.
notwithstanding that both the bands are represented by the same person. I mean, clearly he could have also played the icebreaker between the two of you. And we are talking
Yeah.
about Ashwin here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the idea of also we share a lot of common interests, like
Yeah.
right from the bands we like or musicians we like to even something like anime, for example. So that synergy was always there, but we've never got a chance to work on something that's originally just him and I, right?
Right.
So I wrote this song keeping in mind that something like someone like an Anand is the perfect person for this. His energy and whatever he brings to the table. So waiting for him sort of was easier in that sense because I had written it keeping in mind Anand will sing on it.
Right. So was that the same case, Chinmay, when you worked with Pratika in the past and with Siddharth Basrur on two different tracks, and now with Anand? What I want to get at is when you're working with three different people with three different sensibilities, and you are also, being a part of paradigm shift when you are coming into your own as group bot. Uh,
Mm.
Firstly, before we get to everything else, when you're working with three different people, what is it about their sensibilities and what is it about their musical personalities as such that you have kind of picked onto and you feel like, oh, those are very interesting attributes to have. Maybe I'd like to imbibe them.
Right. So I think first and foremost, I'm a fan of their instrument. I mean, vocal being their instrument in this instance, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Roop is played based on it. I'm a huge fan of his bass playing.
right,
So I'm using Rootboard as a platform to collaborate with these people because I've never had a chance to, but always wanted to do something.
right.
So I'm a fan of their vocals, like period. So I think with each one of them, I really was always looking forward to create something, and I got a chance to because of Groove.
Right. Anand, the same question in a different way, if I get to phrase that, both of you are part of respective bands. There's Paradigm Shift on one end. You're also the frontman of Anand Bhaskar Collective. But as individual entities, as the vocalist Anand Bhaskar and as Groovebot, a solo project, um, is there a major difference from performing as a solo act versus as performing as part of a band?
I feel it really depends on what stage of uh, the musical evolution you're at. For example, like I'd like to give a layered answer to this. Like for example, when Anand Bhaskar Collective was initially writing music, the first two albums were almost entirely like conceptualized and written by me. Of course, there were guitar solos and violin solos by the respective players, but the overall soundscape and the arrangement of the song and overall like the structure was primarily done by me. But after Rishi, our current guitar player, joined the band, the
Yeah,
music became more collaborative. Now the five of us actually write together, and it didn't become it moved on from songs written by Anand Bhaskar and then bands members playing on it to actually all members of Anand Bhaskar Collective writing together. Now, I feel that Chinmay is at that stage where he's writing most of everything, you know. But for vocal melodies, he's collaborating with different vocalists.
yeah,
So in this instance, in Under Pressure, he had the entire track ready even before I started writing the vocals. All the guitars, the bass, the drums, everything was ready. All the electronic parts. Was, it was damn near mixed, really. And so the track literally came to me with an IT, like an instrumental track for on which I was supposed to like sort of react to mentally and write lyrics to. So I think Chinmay is at that stage where he's conceptualizing almost all the music, and maybe in some cases he'll probably write the vocal melody as well. Uh, but so I think he's at that stage. So I think that's where the sort of writing style differs. But that aside, when it comes to actually writing the crux of this track, I don't think the process is any different really.
yeah,
The only difference I would say is that only difference that is there that I would say is the fact that the delivery in which I had to the delivery that I had to do my vocals in, I feel that differed because the track is heavy and I have always wanted to do like growling parts in a song, and I love heavy metal. I love metal music in general, and none of his tracks before had any of those parts. So I kind of floated this idea past him, and he was actually like quite receptive to the idea that okay, you know what, we can actually give it a shot. And that's how. So I remember when I first was jamming with him, I literally opened a recipe of omelette on Google, and I started singing the melody, singing the recipe in the melody of the song, and sent him a voice
wow.
note. It was a really bad voice note though, but somehow he liked it. And he's like, you know what, this is, I like this phrasing. Now let's write lyrics to it. So that's how the song
Yeah.
came about.
I
Yeah,
would,
so to add on to
sorry.
that, I think like working in band environments is not only navigating through paths, but you
Yeah.
navigate personalities as well.
Yes.
Here, there is
Hmm.
no freedom because I sort of can send him something and I can sort of trust him completely. Ki this is what I've done. This is my baby. Now you put your own spin to it. So that trust, that synergy comes with having that understanding that okay, I will give my 110% and then Anand will do the same. So I think that matters a lot.
It's interesting, Chinmay and Anand, that we speak of freedom and trust here, and because it's very imperative, and that when two people are coming together and collaborating, two people with different variations in terms of experience, in terms of musical aesthetics. It's interesting that there is implicit trust and freedom, because often there's a huge risk of creative differences arising. There's a huge risk of back and forth. There can be disagreements. So when the two of you were collaborating on this, um, how open and receptive you were that okay, or rather, being open and receptive is something, of course, we all try to practice. But how did you ensure that if there ever was a disagreement, there was an amicable solution that one would arrive at?
Honestly, my personality is that of I think I'm very aggressive as a person, I feel. Uh, and
I like
whatever comes to
Chinmay. I like
whatever comes to
Chinmay.
my mind, whatever comes to my mind, I actually tell him. And it's been, our relationship has always been like that. Even when he's
Right.
played with ABC, and if I had to tell him something, I would just tell him. I would not beat around the bush. So I
Right.
remember, and that's been a relationship. I remember when the track came to me, I told him, I don't understand where the verse is supposed to come. So can you like maybe put a marker? So he actually used that annoying Google voice, verse one starts here. Like that, he used that and he made markers on the track. And I remember that the intro, there was this huge chunk of music which went on for 90 seconds before any vocals would come in. So I told him, Chinmay, we need to start vocals as soon as possible, because that is how it's going to grab somebody's attention. Because that much music, people are just going to move on to a next song. Because it's something that we did with my band's one of my band's last singles, Jadugari, where we had a
It's a
good
beautiful
8 bar
song.
intro. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And we had a good 8 bar intro there. And then
Yeah.
Rishi, because he's the youngest in the band, he's like, guys, I've just read a bunch of papers on how music listeners consume music. And a
Hmm.
lot of people who consume music, they prefer songs where the vocals just come in as soon as possible. So
Right.
I forced him to cut a lot of that intro music and then use it later on. But
Yeah.
don't
Hmm.
put so much music. Why are we setting up the vocals? We don't need to set up the vocals. We can just start with a bang. So I think that was the only really sort of talking point in terms of me telling him to tweak something on the track. Other than that, I don't think we've had any disagreement at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember when he was over here and we were like recording the song.
Hmm.
There was one section which goes like uh, surrender forever, that part. And I kept telling him, Chinmay, should we just remove this part? I mean, I mean, why are we singing so much? He's like, no, I kept this so that you could, like use your long sustained notes on this because that's something that you do well. And I was like,
Right.
okay, now let me sit and think what we can do. And then we actually sat and wrote the part. And that part wouldn't have come into existence had Chinmay not really put his foot down and insisted that no, we have to write lyrics to it. We have to do something about it.
Right.
Even the part which goes like, look at my life, look at my life, look at my life, look at my life. Even that part actually like came into existence in the studio while we were recording. So I think those are the only two times where we kind of sort of put our respective, you know,
Opinions
foot,
across. Yeah.
feet
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
and we said that we said that this is how it should be. So I think it worked out well, because I love the song.
Right.
So like also he mentioned that he read out the recipe in the first voice note he sent me. The
Yeah.
only thing in that voice note which wasn't a part of that recipe was अबे ये intro इतना लंबा क्यों है?
Okay.
Yeah, with some expletives, but yeah.
So yeah, so he was, and it makes sense that that is his experience coming into play also because
Yep.
I've written this by myself.
Hmm.
Some perspectives of like looking at it neutrally will not come to me.
Right.
Hence, a collaboration with someone as experienced as him really makes sense because I get
Yeah.
that perspective from him
Hmm.
without any filters, which is a plus.
It's so interesting you say that, and actually, kudos, Chinman, that you stood your ground and you said that no, this has to be there because I think where Anand was also trying to come from, and he made a very strong point about consumption because I'm sure both of you would agree to this that unfortunately, a lot of the discoverability of good music today is basis on that 15
Yeah.
seconds that people hear on Instagram or now max which is now the Instagram has given us the leeway of 1 minute. So
Yeah.
No. Yeah, yeah.
how much of an impression does a musician or an artist manage to make within such a small time frame? I guess that's where he was trying to come from. Is that a fair assumption to
Correct.
make, Anand?
I mean, honestly speaking, I hate 1 minute songs. The whole Instagram thing and
Yeah,
how the labels are doing it. I hate it. And that was when everybody started doing it, is when I realized that uh, now ABC is done with singles. We are going to write a new album straight
right.
away. Because whatever the trend is, I want to do the exact polar opposite
Mm.
of it. But
Yeah,
however, the idea of cutting the music didn't come from a social media perspective. It
right,
came
right.
more from a streaming perspective,
Hmm.
Like obviously a lot of people are not going to dance to Under Pressure, you know,
Right.
but but the people who will actually come to the, say for example, if it becomes it gets added to an industrial metal playlist, you know,
Yeah,
people are going to come and immediately relate to the song when they hear when the vocals kick in immediately. That
right.
was the only objective. There was no deeper sort of uh, you know I mean, for the lack of a better word, philosophical reason
Hmm.
for us to
Yeah.
cut out that much music. That's it. We just
Also,
wanted to make sure that the song does well. Sorry,
Right.
Anand
go
is
on,
talking
go on.
about like not conforming to social
Ah,
media, right? So it
right.
would have been a little stupid to like do exactly that. So, so
That's true.
I mean,
That's true.
yeah, yeah,
But even Anand, with now so much of your work comprising of web shows and feature films that you've also been dabbling with, where right now the inclusion of music in narratives has become such that it mostly plays in the background. There are no I mean, the trend of lip sync songs also have kind
Of
of
lip
died down.
sync songs, yeah.
Yes.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
even in that particular, even in that, but when when the playing field has in comparison become relatively smaller, as artists, how do you work your way about conceptualizing songs and albums so that it fits into the narrative, but it doesn't look like a necessary, it just doesn't look like it's been stuck onto the narrative without any relevance to the plot.
But are you asking me this question from the context of commissioned work or independent music?
In terms of both, because you are fairly doing a good amount of both.
See, when it's commissioned work, uh, the whole narrative and the whole context of the composition is
Hmm.
kind of decided by where it's happening in the story, right?
Right.
So in that regard, we are given sometimes we are given references as well, so that
Hmm.
we decide the musical world of the song and what kind of instruments to be used, and it I kind of stems from a huge brainstorming session with my directors. And fortunately, I've had great directors with great musical tastes, right? And there we have to write a composition which has to complement a visual in question. You know,
Right.
the visual is shot before and the song is done later, you know.
Mm.
But in independent music, we decide which songs need visual, like music videos or visuals, so to speak, right? So in that regard, I feel writing a song, has no limits. There's no brief. Like for example, in Jadugari,
Yeah.
uh, my this idea came to me when I was just randomly thinking about the topic. When the melody of Jadugari was ready, I was like, what should this be about? I don't want it to be a typical love song. So let's see. I mean, what if love, the emotion of love, came to life as a human being one day, as an actual living entity one day? Then what would their personality be like? If love was a person, what would their personality be like?
Yeah.
And that led to the lyrics of the song, you know. Dikhta nahi hai ye mehsoos hota. So all those, like it's basically describing love as this unpredictable person, you know. You never know what love can make you do, or what it feels like at various points in life. And at that point in time, we didn't have any idea of what the music video is going to be. Once the song was ready, once the song was mixed and mastered, is when we actually sat down and decided, okay, you know what, let's do an animated music video for it. And then we sent a lyric translation to the animators, Dhruv and Mukund, and then they came back with a storyboard, and then that's when we finalized the music video. So I think that's where the process really differs, because in independent music, we're not bound by a label.
Yeah.
We don't have briefs to work off of. The brief
Hmm.
is basically in our mind. We
Yeah.
ourselves organically write the composition really organically comes about, and there's no thinking that, okay, this solo is too long, or you know uh, we shouldn't be writing about this, or we shouldn't have these words, or we shouldn't be playing this instrument,
Right.
as opposed to a commercial project where things are kind of pre-decided. And if something uh, random is actually makes itself into the song, you
Mm.
know makes its way into the song. If it's working for the song and everybody else likes it, then it gets approved. But otherwise, it's kind of preset. So
Right.
I think that's the difference between both the situations. So yeah.
Coming back to Under Pressure, it's interestingly based on something that we all as generation, I can say, are so reliant on social media. If I may
Mhm.
ask both of you, um, what are the perils and otherwise of social media in your respective opinions? Beginning with you, Chinmay.
I mean, there's a ready-made platform for us to put out our art, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was absent for a long time. So a lot of organic giving it to people, or like passing your cassette or CDs along, or
Hmm.
then came pen drives. So all that we sort of can skip and directly put it out. I think the perils would be people are really harshly opinionated. Like if you don't like, you can sort of leave it at it's not my cup of tea, but
Yeah.
that's not how people behave, right? So I think that is, and because we have to put out stuff constantly, or we keep doing work, like not as much as Anand, but I've been working on the commercial side of it too. But it always so happens that there's a very strong voice of, okay, this is not good or this is not right, right? So I think that is the negative side of it, that a lot of opinions get thrown around when they
Yeah.
don't need to.
Anand?
According to me, I think the social media life for a lot of people has become their real life. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Everything they do, like a lot of people, I mean, at the level of personal details people share on social media is astounding. It's astonishing. I mean, at
Yeah.
one point, I can understand that, okay, you like, say, a painting and you clicked a very cool picture of it and you wanted to share it. I
Yeah.
can understand. Or if you see something funny happening, you document it on video and you share.
Yeah.
But there are people crying on social media because they've broken up, and they've uploaded videos on their YouTube channels or Instagram, and I'm talking about like people who don't have any followers to people who have like hundreds of thousands followers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I feel that that's what the song also talks about, right? It's about always appearing to be perfect and wanting to appear to be perfect. Like uh, some people, it's like they never get sad. You know, it's like they're never sad. They're always happy. They're always full of energy. That's not life,
Yeah.
and that sets such a bad example for young impressionable minds who who are now like, because social media is so like such an important part of our lives, and especially the younger people's lives. They like, why can't my life be like this?
Mm.
They start thinking
Yeah.
that there must be something wrong with me or my life. And I think that's the worst effect of social media. And social media is quite often used as a tool for bullying, you know, like especially in schools and colleges. If somebody has to, make somebody's life hell, it's very easy to use social media to bully a particular person, you know.
Right.
So maybe post an embarrassing photo and share it, share the photo, share the post with, your classmates. And that's, as a victim of bullying myself, I'm so happy that social media was not around back when I was in school.
Right.
Because, it's so I feel that it was supposed to be a tool to connect with long lost friends and or share your art. And I feel that this parallel side, darker side of it has risen up and is now overtaking uh, the positive aspect of social media. Like, for
Yeah.
example, I came across this profile of two girls. They are twins, and they have, I think, 1.5 million followers. I can't remember the name. They are
Mhm.
twins,
Yeah.
and they don't do anything, Vijay. They are famous because they're twins. They won some award also, some very prestigious digital artist award. They don't dance, they don't sing, they don't paint. There's nothing. They're
So there's
famous
no
for being
creative or
twins.
Nothing.
performing art of any sort. It is just
They're they're famous for being twins. So
Okay.
it's like, I mean, then I should be famous for being a Keralite who grew up in Delhi. I mean, you know.
no.
And
Also, it's
of course,
weird to
I
feel
mean,
that.
and this is not a comment on those two girls. Huh? Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not at all
Absolutely.
demeaning those
Yeah.
girls. I'm actually talking about the audience that has made this possible. Because
Thank you for
because
saying
if
that.
if you ask me, if you ask me, uh, that was if I was given the opportunity to become as famous as those two girls, would I not take it? I would take it, of
Of
course.
course.
Who wouldn't want to be famous on social media?
Yeah.
You know. So those two girls are not at fault here at all. But the audience is like the bar of something that appeals to you is
Yep.
so low that the earth recoils in second-hand embarrassment. It's that bad, you know.
I'm
So,
glad you said
so,
that.
so the audience needs to really pull itself up. It's something that I've said in many, many interviews. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't be passing shit off as art. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Known of a life without social media in the picture. There's an entire generation of kids out there who
Hmm.
do not know of life devoid of social media. So
Yep.
they think this is how it's supposed to be, and that sort of is a little disheartening, to say the least.
And it's interesting,
I
Anand.
agree.
Yeah, and Anand made something. He made a very interesting observation about how bar is a low for the audience, because I also feel it's high time that the radar shifted to the audience. The audience is questioned about what are they listening to, what are they watching, what are they consuming in terms of what's being put out there. Because every time, if an artist how meets an unfortunate end, if it's whether naturally or whether it's by suicide,
Mm,
it's
mm.
very the blame is very conveniently shifted upon how the industry is the culprit, or how the media person is the culprit, when the way they represent the artist. but never
True,
has
true.
the audience been questioned. I remember speaking about it so strongly when KK passed away earlier this year. And I put out this very strong worded note where I said, why does it take tragedy for people to wake up from their slumber and uh,
Exactly.
and realize the artist's worth? Why is it something that um, why is it that you can't let the artist is when you have social media at your disposal, when it is the best access that you have to reach artists and let them know that their art matters, what they're doing matters to you, why not
Hmm.
share that with them rather than constantly scrutinizing their personal and professional choices which have no consequences on your life at
Like,
all.
yeah, exactly, exactly. I agree. I completely agree. You know,
so
and I
so
feel that
yeah.
an artist's life is wasted away when they're alive, and like they could have done so much more had they had the right kind of attention and spotlight. And you know, I was briefly recently discussing this with another musician, where I said that uh, like if somebody who's really good to look at and they put up a picture, it gets 3,000 likes,
Yeah.
which is all fair and well, you know. But let's say if Chinmay puts up a really complicated Dream Theater guitar solo,
Hmm.
it's like 10 views and maybe 14 likes, you know. So if that's what it is all about, then I think then the musicians should really like boycott social media and just get off of it and stop giving social media platforms content,
Yeah.
to
Mm.
capitalize. And at the same time, the audience needs to realize that labels or whoever the power is, whoever is basically custom tailoring the content for
Yeah.
them, they think that the audience is dumb. So the audience needs to wake up and say that we are not dumb.
Hmm.
They need to realize that they're being treated as dumb people, or they're being treated as somebody with less intelligence and less exposure and less expectations. तो इनको कुछ भी फेंक दो, खा लेंगे.
Hmm.
You know,
True.
that audience needs to sort of kind of develop a little self-respect and realize, you know what? No, we don't want this shit. We don't want like substandard sexist jokes to be passed off as comedy. I mean, there's just one example, because you see that a lot of in lot of these comedy films in Bollywood that make 300 crores, and the humor
Mm.
is so horrible. It's not even funny.
Coming back to music, Chinmay and Anand, to kind of conclude this interview with, how hopeful are you about OTT now, which a lot of people believe is um, a blessing. Of course, it could have its adversities also. There could be a fair set of challenges, or I mean, all of it withstanding. But how hopeful
Hmm.
are you that OTT is the way forward for the independent music scene to flourish?
Uh, Firstly, I feel the OTT space has democratized uh,
Yeah.
opportunity in terms of, uh, and actually that is also not going to last long, because the biggies have now noticed that the OTT space is growing. So now you see web series which have Shahid Kapoor in it, and Sonakshi Sinha in it, and all these big studios and big composers, established composers, are now gravitating towards the OTT space. So it may not stay as democratized as it was, because initially, because in its nascent stages, all production houses wanted to work with people who were not married to money, and who would actually not, hold back from delivering their best at the lowest possible rates. But that's not the case now,
Yeah.
because the OTT space is growing now. But having said that, it still remains a democratic sort of space for newer artists to present their skills, especially in terms of actors and musicians. You know, and I don't believe in this whole nepotism debate or concept or whatever. Like, I mean, if I was owning a business, and if I decided to hand the reins of that business over to somebody, I would obviously want it to be my son or my daughter, you know. So why should that be different for an actor or a producer? They would obviously want to hand over their business and their contacts, and whatever they couldn't have at a young age, they would want to give it to their daughter.
Yeah.
So the whole nepotism thing of star kids doesn't really fly with me. I mean, anybody would do that for their children. So that's something that, but having said that, people who don't come from those families, OTT space really helps them.
Hmm.
You know, the OTT space is actually scouting theater groups and finding good actors. They're actually scouting independent music on Spotify and Apple Music and Ghana and whatnot, and licensing these songs or getting these artists to make completely new songs from scratch. And I feel that is a great, you know, shift in the winds of, you know, that our industry was initially like going towards. I feel that's a great shift that's it's a great paradigm shift, no pun intended, you know, to in the way things were. And I feel it's a great thing. I mean, independent musicians should really look at, you know, making those connections and pitching their music to people, you know, to people who are making content in the OTT space. So I think yeah, that's my opinion on it.
Chinmay?
Yes, I think that status quo that existed is sort of changing, as Anand said. And yeah, I mean, I've gotten a lot of opportunities to work on jingles and commercial, like TP ad karna hai, all that, because they've essentially heard me play with my bands. Groovebot happened very recently. So, but they've heard me play with Paradigm, they've heard me play with Hook. So they know कि हाँ चल ये caliber का composer है. So why not try this with him? Which never
Correct.
happened because there was no link in between a person who wanted a certain kind of music and us. Now that has narrowed down because
Yeah.
of OTT. So I
That's true.
think there's a lot of opportunity and it's ours for the taking, to be honest. But we need to take that first step. We need to have a reel ready or we need to
Yeah.
have demos ready. So
I
that
actually,
initial
yeah. No,
thrust
go on,
of
go on.
things you need to do,
Hmm.
you need to do. And then I think a lot of opportunities are there for the taking.
Yeah. I actually wanted to add a little point there.
Yeah.
A lot of independent musicians that I come across, they wait for the right, not right, I would say. They will wait for something that's so perfect that even gods would be bowled over for them, to release their stuff, right? The most perfect take, the most perfect mix, the most perfect music video. And in the pursuit of that perfection, several years go by. And the sound that they're trying to now release has become stale, right? My suggestion to independent musicians would be to release music consistently, you know, because you will never attain that perfect sound. You have to understand that there's only so much you can do. You can't, like, you know, it's in Malayalam there's a saying which says that you can't bathe the child so much that the child vanishes, you know. So your song will sound good. I mean, once you take it to a good producer, to a good mix engineer, it does not need to sound like a Coldplay song. It needs to sound good on streaming, you know. But that also, having said that, don't settle for substandard shit either.
Yeah.
You know. So my suggestion is that release music consistently, because everything that I have today in my commercial music you know, portfolio is because of Anand Bhaskar Collective.
Right.
Because of the music I have released with Anand Bhaskar Collective.
Yeah.
And that is something that I would recommend to every independent artist out there.
Fair. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for this really in-depth conversation this afternoon. I hope in the coming future we get to connect again and continue this forward, because it's been such a pleasure to speak to both of you this afternoon. And both of you are so opinionated, and I mean, there has to be these wonderful opinions put across on a public forum so that somewhere we can propel the change that we wish to see. So thank you so much.
Correct.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having
My pleasure.
me, Vijay.